You
Big
have a lot to
mouth.
say about what our topic or just about life in general?
Our topic.
Okay, good.
Do you have a lot to say, either of you?
Yeah, I mean, I think
I could talk about it.
I could share a little bit.
But
Sure.
I'm gonna. It's weird because it's generally I'm okay. I've been a little sick this week, but I feel like I'm on the mend. Hi everybody, how you doing? I hope you're enjoying this channel. If you are, press like and subscribe. Pod and deliver, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today we have return guest Jacob Gerhardt to talk with us, have a discussion about a writer. We want to focus on a particular writer. Jacob Gerhardt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome.
It's an honor to have you. It's a pleasure. And today, I thought, by way of introduction, I guess I could say that if you were around Long Beach State in the 90s, early 90s, like I was, in particular the English department, you heard three names talked about a lot, three literary names, three names I had never even heard of. And the names were Charles Bukowski. And when I say names bandied about, I mean from professors and students alike. It was just a buzz. And I used to hear these three names: Charles Bukowski, John Fonte, of whom we recently reviewed Ask the Dust, and Raymond Carver. And I was so intrigued, and I go, I have to see what the fuss was about. And I remember just reading for the first time Raymond Carver, and you just don't forget. And so I remember him vividly, and I remember approaching a professor in particular. He has written several books about the short story, um, and Dr. Charles May. And I remember just wanting to talk to him, and all my questions were about Raymond Carver. And he would look at me and he says, "It sounds like you're like me, a big Carver fan." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And I remember him telling me, "Well, I like both the early and the late Carver, but I prefer the early Carver, the stingy Carver, who didn't give you all the information. But later, he was more generous, he was more open, and so he says, I prefer the stingy guy. And so I like it all personally. I like the cathedral, the generous Carver. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, maybe. Some do. But I just want to say that
Can I say
this,
something to that, Ruben?
yes,
Could
yes,
the early Carver be the edited Carver and then the later
yes.
Carver, the unedited Carver?
So, so the early Carver is more edited, more close to the vest. Didn't give you all the information because it was cut. Um, and it's what we talk about when we talk about love, that collection, as opposed to maybe later the Cathedral collection, which had the more generous, less edited. But it's just a difference of opinion. They're both good. And we're going to talk about both styles here. Some of the stories that we're talking about reflect both styles. But anyway, I have something to say about a particular story I want to talk about. But Jake Gerhardt, as the guest, would you like to start us off, or would you like me to?
Well, you know what? You really hit something that I was thinking about a lot
Okay,
because the two stories I chose were A Small Good Thing and
so much
Water.
water.
Yeah, so much water so close to home. And then I realized, so I have I have the version. This I think came out like 1988, just about I think when he passed away, or and then the stories are in here.
Yeah.
Well, these stories are shorter than this.
A lot
So
of those, yeah, a lot of those stories in that collection are from the generous, although there are a few stories that are from the more stingy, the more edited,
yeah.
stingy Carver. Yeah.
So a small good thing in here is called The Bath. And it's the same
That's
setup
right.
of this boy banging his head and the boy passing away. It's just unbelievably sad. But this is just a little bit, just, it just ends. You don't meet the baker here.
Can you just because are you able to talk about the one a small good thing
Yeah, so
as
that's
opposed
the
to the
one I
back?
want to talk about. But it's
Okay. Yeah.
interesting
Yes.
that it was like that. And I was thinking a lot about that because one of the short stories is a movie, but it's a super short story. And so I find that really interesting as well. But one of the things is to go to a small good thing. It's a tragic. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a heartbreaking story. And it's a woman, it's just so Carver-esque. Is that the word, Carver-esque? Where
Mhm.
there's no hero in a sense of there's no redemption. There's no heroic figure in it. No one does anything beyond just living through this tragedy. That's it. And this time reading it, I was really struck by how I noticed the doctor, Dr. Francis, and tells them what happened. He he said, we're going to take care of this. And then it doesn't. And he describes what happened. And he's helpless. He can't do anything. There's nothing that can be done. And he stays with them a little bit longer than I remember when I first read the story. When I first read the story, I was struck by just the final 2 pages. That's what I remember. Just this baker and this man and woman who have their children, have just lost their child. And she's ready to rip his head off. And the baker doesn't know what had happened. And he just gives them to eat, eat. You have to eat something. It's a small good thing. And they're just together, but there's nothing, they're not going to get past it. Their lives are completely different from that moment on. And unlike so many other Carver stories as well, there isn't a past. It just happens, boom. So this story, I think I'm a little bit more attracted to it because it has this, it starts in a moment, but the husband and wife are not fighting, they're not drinking, you don't know anything that's happening besides that they love their son and he is taken from them. So unlike some of the other stories where there's this there's something brutal in the past that has been alluded to that's in the conscious of, either in the front or just in the back stewing for each character. This one just tells something that's horrific and they're going to have to move on. And it stops right at that point where they will move on somehow, some way.
Jake, why did you pick it?
I remember reading it for the first time. There are some Carver stories I remember reading for the first time, and that was one of them. And I wondered, no, I didn't. Maybe I've read it in a magazine, and I've been thinking about that a lot. Like you got this. This is a book that has great short stories, and an author introduces them, and Tobias Wolff introduces Cathedral, and he said the Atlantic Monthly came in the mail. And there's that story. And I feel bad. My children haven't experienced that. Like that the idea of getting introduced to a short story in that way, just reading something is so rare now. And so I think that's what really stuck. There's about 5 Carver stories that I really remember reading them the first time in high school or college. And not really, you got it in the magazines. It's not like at that point nobody was like talking about it. It just was in the Atlantic. And so that's one of the reasons why I think I chose it.
Can I
Just
say something
stuck it.
real
Yes,
quick?
please.
I read both The Bath, which is the shortest one, and then of course the one that Jacob presented right now. And I felt like there's two types of messages. I felt like The Bath was more about lack like communication, how we miss each other, and how we're not, and that goes from the wife, the husband, and the baker. But then the longer piece that you're sharing, Jake, I said, oh, this story, there's more to it. I mean, then there's the baker comes in. And then there's that dynamic and there's a lot of internal things happening. Sometimes we see people on the street, we don't know what they're going through. I feel like that was kind of a message. Like people are hurting, people are crushed, people
Yeah.
have maybe lost their son. And the baker, it hit him. And he felt like he was living a life kind of like a zombie in a way. Like I'm just, and then this happened and it kind of woke him up a little bit. And then they were able to break bread together and they ate together and it humanized them and it made them like maybe this relationship might even go on later, or at least they have something they could say we came together in this moment. And I just felt like, wow, I thought the first part was great, the bath, but then this just like filled it up. And even though I do love the his shorter pieces, I just feel like this was just like, whoa, I think this might be one of his best stories. I know that's saying it right away because there's so many stories, but this one was just so like so much to it, you know? So anyway.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I didn't pick this story, but a couple of thoughts. By the way, Jake, Terrion and I would talk about. She loved this story. She picked this one when we used to talk about Carver, but Susanna Terrion. But I'm going to say this, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. This story, a small good thing. So I'm going to say the larger one, a small good thing, should be required reading for everybody. I'm not saying it's my necessarily my favorite Carver story, but I think it should be required reading for everybody. And I mean literally, because it speaks to empathy and how even though you're going through something that seems much grander than somebody else and their small corner and they don't understand you, when you read this story, it reveals so much. And the baker and his world, and I love how you said, Jake Aguilar, they broke bread. Well, they literally broke bread.
Yeah.
Like, but what a theme of seeing somebody else's world and stepping in their shoes for a moment. And that anxiety, by the way, that Carver builds as the phone call is coming in, and then the reveal later in the bakery. So what a great story in that sense.
Wow. Yeah. There's such a humanity to it.
Very good choice, Mr. Gerhardt. Let's pivot to Jacob Aguilar. What story would you like to discuss?
So I've been reading these stories for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I decided not to read like three or four a day. I just read one or two, and I'm glad I did, usually one. And this is one of the stories I read earlier called Sacks. And I think I was drawn to it because it's a father and son story. It's a son who's older now, has a wife, a child, I think a couple kids, and he is a traveling book salesman. And he says, I have opportunity to see my dad in California and I know I haven't seen him since my parents got divorced. I'm gonna see him, and so I was drawn to that because I'm like, wow, they meet each other, and you could tell there's a little uncomfortableness because last time he probably saw his dad, it was probably right after divorce, and there's a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of ugliness, and his father left his mother for another woman, and then the father starts telling him the whole story, and I'm thinking, I don't want to hear that, and part of me, I'm like, Dad, you don't have to tell me, but the father's like, he has like guilt, I guess, and he wants to just share it,
What
right?
story? What story?
Sex.
No, no. What did the father tell the son again?
Oh, I'm sorry. The father is telling the son the whole story regarding how he cheated on his mother, right? On his wife, and then
Cheated on his wife, which is his son's mother.
his son's
Yeah.
mother. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not sure if I would want to hear the story. I'm like, okay, Dad, I forgave you, and you can have a sense that he kind of sort of forgave because he's sitting there with him. I mean, if he really hated him, he wouldn't be there. And then, his father even offers him, that's why it's called sack, some candy for his wife and for his children. And don't forget the candy. And then so you see them, his father just basically spill it out, and the father and the son's listening to it. And I guess, in the beginning, one of the cool lines is the father says, "Oh, how's your wife and children?" And you know how we just say, "Oh, yeah, everybody's great," but then but inside, the narrator says, "Oh, nothing, everything isn't great," and then you realize, wait a minute, maybe that's happening. I mean, I was thinking, what at the end you see he's by himself, and is he alone? And he makes a comment, right, that he forgot the candy, and it's okay because it's not good for them. But even a year later, it's still not good for them because maybe they're not together anymore. So I'm thinking maybe he's kind of feeling more for his dad, like, hey. I kind of get where my dad was, or at least I'm in that spot where he was. And so it just, I guess, because, we all have fathers, and I was thinking about that, how that would have been a difficult talk, but I thought it was just well done. And what I like about Carver is sometimes I don't know what the ending is. Like, I'm like, I think this is what's happening. I think maybe he's having trouble with his wife, and maybe they're divorced, or maybe she had an affair. Who knows? But I love those questions because you get to kind of figure it out, or trying to figure it out. And I don't like when it's all like, this is how it happened, boom. But he does that, not always, but often he does that, and I like that about him.
Mr. Gerhardt, you have thoughts about
You know,
sex?
it's exactly what Jacob said. That's what draws me to it. I mean, I still reread it and everything, but it's also so unbelievably vivid. So the writing, he makes it look so easy.
Yeah,
But there's a man first in a hotel room looking out on a dirty Midwest. Then he's in a bar in maybe Oakland Airport or San Francisco Airport. And then you're in a woman's living room 30 years before. And you just feel every moment of that short story. It's less than 9 pages.
yeah,
Is it feels like somebody's telling you this. It feels like you're never going to believe this story that Bob told me. You feel like it just happened. That's what's so incredible about it, and that it's just right to the point, but somehow without feeling that as you're reading it, that is what's happening. But you're just going into this world, and you're in it. I think it's a plastic covered. It took me back. Like I don't.
yeah.
Everybody had that I knew when I go into somebody's house as a paperboy. They have plastic covered couches that nobody sat on ever. And I think that's what they had. She didn't have the money to pay for him. He was like, don't worry about it. But it's a very odd story too. And you could just imagine the old man telling it to his son, who like may have also have had some bad news, or I got to tell this before something else happens, or I haven't seen my son in 15 years. I mean, I don't know, but there's a sadness to it as well. There's a sadness to it, like all of his stories.
Yes, there is this melancholy layer to this story. I want to say, Jake Gerhardt, the way you described this story is very, very interesting. You said that you can you can feel that sense of place in the airport bar where they're discussing, and then you can go back 30 years prior, whatever it was, 20 years prior, in this living room where this man is seducing this woman, um, and their secret dalliance. You just it just effortlessly brought you there. And Jake, my brother, kudos to you for picking this story, which is kind of an unheralded story in his oeuvre. Like people don't talk about Sachs enough. This story has a way of getting under your skin. It's hard to describe. It just stays with you. To your point, Jake, when you said about the Sachs, Jacob Aguilar, you said,
Yeah.
um, no, I put it down here, but what's the actual line? He says, so the father meets his son, and he opened a white confectionery sack. He said, I picked up a little something you could maybe take back with you, not much, some almond roca for Mary and some jelly beans for the kids. Thanks, I said. Don't forget this when you leave. And the
Yeah.
one thing the son made sure he did do is forget it. What a commentary on how the son is feeling about his father. I'm gonna make sure I do what he asked me not to, what he asked me not to, not to do what he asked me to do. And I'm just there's two characters, obviously, the father and son. You're mesmerized by the father because he's telling him a very inappropriate story, but also the son is listening. And he's a character by listening and by what he's going through. There's a lot there that can just stir the imagination. It's really powerful to consider the son. So it's very fascinating. Sax.
Can I read the last couple lines? He goes, I remembered how I've left his sack of gifts on the bar. Just as well. Mary didn't need candy, almond roca, or anything else. That was last year. She needs it now even less. So it's like, what? What about you? Do you have a story for us?
I do. When you've all heard the discussion, whether you're at the movies or you're just talking to people, and you have somebody saying, I'm about to get married, or I'm in love, and maybe the person's young, maybe they're 21, maybe they're 17, maybe they're 30, and they're saying, I'm just excited, I'm about to get married. And somebody in the room cynically says, I used to think that too.
Yeah.
And where wait till you get to reality. We've all experienced something like that. The story, Why Don't You Dance, to me typifies that conversation, but it demonstrates it in a picture that's really profound if you think about it, if you read it. And it's a story of a yard sale. Everything must go. There was a movie about this where everything is laid out on the yard. This guy is done with the marriage. She's done with him. Maybe he's done with her. The bed is the TV. Everything is there. Everything must go. I don't care the price. It's gotta go. And I'm probably gonna go. And then a young couple comes in and they look around and they play the TV and they're drinking and they're on the bed. And the guy comes, the owner comes. He's been out to the liquor store. He's come, he's drinking. He brings out hey, come on. Yeah, everything's going. And what is this? How much does this cost? It doesn't matter. Just buy it, whatever price you give me. It's just really interesting to reflect on this, and you read it and you think, "Oh, I get this story. I get it. I understand. Cool." And it's great as is. But then the ending comes around and you're not expecting it. And then you start to reflect, there's something else about this that I didn't think about. And maybe it has something to do with um, the personalities of those involved and the imagination of the writer. And I also think about when I read this story, I think about the movie Lost in Translation, where they're at the very end, Bill Murray whispers something to Scarlett Johansson, and everybody wonders what it is. But the ending kind of leaves you in a cliffhanger, and you think you know, but maybe you don't know. And that's the fun of Carver. And I don't know what to say, but Why Don't You Dance to me is one of the best. Thoughts?
If I could say something first, that I just like the idea of he's older and he's been married and he's already done with it. And they're new. I think he uses the words boy and girl. I'm not sure if I'm wrong or right,
Yeah.
but because they're kids in his mind. And
Yeah.
I think we're at an age where we see young couples. I think we might even think of them as kids, right? Oh, they're kids. They're young and married. What do they know? And I feel like he's like, hey, you know what? Take my stuff. They all those things, Ruben, like you're sharing, that he's letting go. They all have memories. There's something significance. Like Kimberly and I had like a coffee pot for like 20 years, 20 something years, but it was like something about it that made it like it stayed with us. It was like part of that longevity of our marriage. And then now he's like, it's all gone. And that young girl, I feel like maybe she got it a little bit, or at least she saw it, because at the moment they danced, I believe, right? And I felt like she was thinking, at least she was thinking, wait a minute, where, is that us in 20, 30 years? Are we some, like I think you mentioned, are we going to have a fire sale one day? You know? And so it makes you think, because marriages are, um, not all of them last, and and so it is a pretty cool story, Rube. That was one of the first stories I actually ever read, and I thought, oh, I like this guy. I like this guy. He's really good. So anyway, my thoughts.
And I mean, the first sentence in the kitchen, he poured another drink and looked at the bedroom suite in his front yard. Like, that's not everybody can pull that off. And there is everything, the bedstand, the lamps, everything in the front yard. It's
That,
it's
yes,
hilarious
it's
and terribly
hilarious.
sad.
And there's something about the voyeurism of this story too, where everybody can see, and
Yeah.
the old guy, the older guy, I don't want to say he's an old guy, older guy doesn't care. Here I am,
Yeah, he's given up.
open. What's that?
He's given up. He's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And that movie about it is really good. I think
The
with
Will
Will.
Ferrell.
Yeah,
Will Ferrell.
I think
Yeah.
it's really good. It's really interesting. It's like it is a Carver character.
Yeah.
He drinks, he stopped drinking. He was in trouble at work. He got over it, I mean, that's his characters. That's Carver, it seems to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty wild. It's crazy. It's just so interesting.
So it's so fun. I think I don't know how this is going to sound to people, but if you can combine desperate melancholy and sadness with fun, it's this story because everything is on the lawn. They're on their bed, they're watching TV on the lawn. It's funny and it's fun and it's sad. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's what it is, as the
Yeah, and the writing somehow, and maybe it's there's so many stories that you just know without a description that it's a house that needs repair.
Mm.
It's at a kitchen where everything is old. It's a television that barely works. It's a the furnace the goes out through the winter. You just know that. But there's something about the dance that one that makes me feel it's a little bit nicer. He has a little bit more going on, and maybe it's just the way I think the description of what he owns just seems to be better in better condition. So he had something, at least financially, and it's gone. And so that's also really interesting because so many of Carver's characters, never really don't have much. But this one, it seemed in my mind that it's like it's all lost, and we don't know why, but we could assume,
Right.
you know.